What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Rabid here. Be sure to smash that subscribe button because today we are checking out the hash rates of the Ryzen 9 9950X3D on Veruscoin. So before we do get into those numbers, some parameters quickly here. This is an X870 motherboard. You will get probably some less power usage utilizing a smaller B650 motherboard, which you can just flash the BIOS and have support for this CPU. Now, as we know from previous testing, Veruscoin does not matter about RAM, dual channel and speed and things like that. So what we actually did here is I did my baseline test with 2 sticks of 6000 megahertz RAM, and then I used a single stick and then tested it as well just to compare how it does. Another thing is if you are a Warthog miner, it does use VRSC, so you will be able to utilize these hash rates to decide what kind of GPU to pair with this CPU. Alright guys, so here are the numbers for Veruscoin on the Ryzen 9 9950X. So starting off with 2 sticks of 6000 megahertz RAM here, XMP profile is turned on. We can see that PBO -60 curve in eco mode was 47.44 kilohash at 144.6 watts at the wall. That works out to 328 hashes per a single watt of power. I then went into 4.3 gigahertz on the CPU and dropped this down to 0.89 volts. It did run less than 0.9 because Veruscoin is a more efficient algorithm than RandomX, but I do recommend tweaking on RandomX. That way, if you do switch coins, you don't have to go through your entire CPU farm and retweak everything. Coming in, this did give us 48.73 kilohash at 153 watts at the wall. Worked out to efficiency range of 318 hashes per single watt of power. Now I went into PBO -50 curve with no eco mode on. So this is pretty much like adding that overclocking curve here and then dropping eco mode. So it's more like a stock mode in that matter. We did boost up to 60.53 kilohash at 250.2 watts, but that did, at least in these settings here with 2 sticks of RAM, work out to be the least efficient at 241 hashes per single watt of power. And then we went in and tried our single stick, which RAM is not dependent when it comes to this algorithm. So 1 stick with no XMP or Expo profiles turned on, so it's all stock here. We do have PBO -60 curve in eco mode, 50.68 kilohash. We can see that for the same settings with a single stick, we're actually boosted our hash rate and our power dropped a couple watts as well at 142.2 watts versus 104.6. That made our peak efficiency out of all my tests at 356 hashes per a single watt of power. I then went in and put 4.3 gigahertz on 0.89 volts as well. We went from 48.73 to 49.81 kilohash, 142.7 watts, so down again from 153 watts. Obviously here we don't have any overclocked RAM and we only have a single stick, so that's where a lot of our power draw is being saved here. That is 349 hashes per watt of power. Then we went into the PBO with a -50 curve with no eco mode here. That was our highest hash rate at 62.39 kilohash, 238.2 watts at the wall here. Again, we went up in hash rate versus the same setting with 2 sticks of RAM and XMP on. That is 261 hashes per watt of power. So then I tried overclocking to get more out of this thing to see what we could do. Obviously I failed because our highest hash rate was the previous one. But here's 5.5 gigahertz at 1.13 volts. 1.1 did crash on me. 61.58 kilohash at 251.8 watts. 244 hashes per single watt of power. Then I tried to go a bit more with the PBO -60 curve with no eco mode. And I also added in the plus 100 megahertz override to the core boost here. And, that didn't help anyway. Maybe I was using that wrong. But anyway, 62.38 kilohash at 238.1 watts makes for 261 hashes per watt. So you can see the reds and greens here. So in green here, we can see our lowest amount of power was in fact the PBO -60 curve in eco mode was our most efficient setting in terms of hashes per watt and lowest power being used. And then our highest hash rate did result in actually our PBO -50 curve without eco mode We did peak at 62.39. This did use quite a bit of power at 238.2 watts at the wall, which is pretty high, but if you have free power, you don't really care and you're just going for straight up hash rate. But there are the numbers for Veruscoin on the 9950X3D. Hope this video helped you out. Let me know what algorithm I should try next. I'll see you on the next one. Rabid out.